People have a problem with working overtime. I want to read a few of these comments for you guys real quick, just to preface this video. This person says, there's no point in working overtime if greedy Uncle Sam is taking all of the overtime. Next, not only do I not want to work overtime, I don't want to work 40 hours. Moving on, anyone can make 100K with enough overtime. The trick is getting that with 40 or less hours. The next one says 12-hour shift is not worth it in the long run, will take a toll on your health. And last but not least, I miss the 40-hour work week. It seems that any job that pays decent, you have to work 50 to 70 hours. It's just not worth it. I guarantee you there will be no driver shortage if they only ask them to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now that last comment was obviously pertaining to truck driving jobs. But I just wanted to share my thoughts as it relates to working overtime. Anybody who has a W-2 job understands that the money is made in the overtime. I don't think that's debatable. That's just a fact, right? As a W-2 employee, the money is made in overtime. Now, there are a lot of different opinions pertaining to overtime. I don't know about you guys, but in my working career, I've worked with people who like working overtime because they like bigger paychecks. Those same people, if you take the overtime away from them, or you start reducing the amount of overtime that they're accustomed to working, they get upset about it. So they really like working their overtime and they really like making a certain amount of money. So they want to try to sustain that. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have those who say, you know what? I don't care about overtime. I just want to work my shift, my scheduled shift. If that's 40 hours, I'm cool with the 40. I don't want to work extra. Or some companies have mandatory overtime, mandatory 6 days a week and things of that nature. People just don't like that. And to be fair, I understand. I think that's valid, right? I'll be honest. If I was, quote unquote, forced to have to work an extra day or mandatory overtime, I probably would feel some type of way about it because, I may have some plans, things of that nature, and I just don't know how I would feel about that at the end of the day. So I get that, right? Particularly if it's often. If it's like, once every few months or something like that, that may be another story. But if it's often, if it's on a regular basis, yeah, I probably would, have some issues with that. I may be, looking for another job. But that's neither here nor there. As a W-2 employee, one person in the comments mentioned that, it's easier to make 6 figures working overtime. He said anybody can make 6 figures when you work overtime. The trick is to make that working 40 or less hours. Well, in order for you to make 6 figures working 40 or less hours, a few things have to happen. Number one, you have to have a high hourly rate. For example, lawyers. I was reading an article recently where some of the top lawyers at major law firms in major cities charge anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 per hour. Per hour. Now, I'm not suggesting that a lawyer is the only occupation where you can work 40 or less hours and make really good money. But when you charge in those type of rates, you definitely can make 6 figures working 40 hours or less. And I'm sure a lot of lawyers probably work more than that. I'm just giving you an example. If you want to make 6 figures working 40 hours or less, you have to have a job where you're getting a high hourly rate, or you have to be in some type of sales job where you're getting paid commissions and things of that nature, or possibly even a finance type of job, something along those lines, right? And there may be some other jobs that I can't think of off the top of my head where you can possibly make 6 figures working 40 or less hours as a W-2 employee. W-2 employee, I want to emphasize that. But for the most part, most 6-figure earners are working overtime in order to make those 6 figures. That's just a fact. It just is what it is, right? I don't think there's any way around it. When it comes to making money, you have some people that just prioritize making money. At the end of the day, personally, I think it comes down to the individual, because people have different goals and aspirations. People have certain things that they want to accomplish, and they're willing to make sacrifices. You know, when you listen to some of the wealthiest people in the world tell their story as to how they became wealthy, right? Like Warren Buffett, for example. I don't know if you guys ever watched the Warren Buffett documentary, but he talks about how he was never around. His kids didn't spend a whole lot of time with his wife because his primary focus was the stock market and just consuming as much information he could about the financial markets, right? So his kids, admittedly, Warren Buffett as well, talked about how Warren was never around. They were raised primarily by their mother. His wife at the time talked about how Warren was just obsessed with the financial markets. When I listen to a lot of wealthy people talk about their story as to how they became wealthy, one thing that a lot of them have in common is the fact that they didn't spend a lot of time with their loved ones, right? They sacrificed their time. Scott Galloway is another one. He's rich, he's wealthy, and he talks about his primary focus was making money. He said he was obsessed with making money. And he said as a result of that, it cost him his marriage. He said he didn't spend a lot of time with his kids. He lost about 70% of his wealth in a divorce. And he said it was worth it to him, because now he's able to spend all the time he wants with his kids. He's remarried. I think Scott Galloway stated he's about 57 years old. At the time when he was really grinding and focused on money, he said, you know, when he was in his 40s, 30s, 40s. But now he's 57, remarried, and he said he can do whatever he want to do and spend as much money as he want to spend, right? These are things that he literally said. He said he got a crap ton of money and he could do whatever he want to do. And some people have that type of mindset when it comes to work-life balance. You know, we like to say work-life balance. For some people, that doesn't exist. It's just work, work, work. To others, you want to be able to make money, of course, but you also want to have that time to where you can have a quality of life and spend with your family, and, you know, spend time with your family, spouse, kids, partner, whatever the case may be. We're talking about W-2 employees. For a lot of people, they want to make as much money as they possibly can in order to live the best life that they can live. right? And so they're willing to sacrifice working the extra hours. You know, I remember my manager telling me a story. This was a couple years ago now. And he was telling me about this Cisco driver that he was having a conversation with while he was out on the route. And he was telling me that this Cisco driver was working 6 days a week, some weeks, because his goal was he wanted to pay off his house really early. I think my manager said, the guy said he had a few years left on his house, and he was trying to get it paid off as quick as possible. And so he was working 6 days a week at Cisco. Now, for those of you who aren't in the food service industry and you're not familiar with food service delivery drivers, which is what I am, a Class A food service delivery driver, food service is a tough job. I can't imagine working 6 days a week consistently, especially not for Cisco. So whoever this driver was, you built different. You built different. But he had a goal in mind. And my manager told me that this driver told him that he was making like 160, I believe it was, a year. Just due to the extra day and things of that nature. And that's not out of the ballpark when it comes to food service. I had a PFG driver send me his salary one year, and he made like 145. So, it's not uncommon to make that type of money in food service if you're working like this driver is working, right? Again, man, that's a lot of work. I'm pretty sure that driver has to be exhausted, but he has a goal in mind. And again, W-2 employee. So it comes down to the individual, I think, your goals, the type of life you want to have, sacrifices. I talked about lawyers earlier, but jobs that require you to have specialized skills, a certain level of education and credentials and things of that nature are gonna pay more money. It just is what it is. That's just the world we live in. So if you want to make the most money possible and really maximize your earning potential, it comes down to value. How much value can you add? When you think about a lawyer adds a ton of value to others. If you get into any type of trouble or whatever the case may be and you need legal representation, you're going to seek out a lawyer, right, to represent you. They provide a ton of value. So those are my thoughts, guys. Y'all let me know what you think. Like I said, man, at the end of the day, it comes down to how much value can you provide to others, right? Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything you want. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you don't want to work a W-2 job or you're opposed to working overtime, you have a problem with it, I get it. That's valid. Listen, a lot of people have a problem with trading time for money. That's why people go into entrepreneurship. As an entrepreneur or doing something as a hobby, having a specialized skill set, being able to provide value, you can make a lot of money without having to sacrifice time, right? For example, real quick, content creation. As a content creator, we have companies or businesses that reach out to us to collaborate, right? They want us to promote a product or a service on our platform to give them more exposure. And so there are content creators that charge hundreds, some even thousands, depending on the platform, some tens of thousands of dollars to create a 20-second, 30-second, 60-second video clip, right? But to the company, that's value that the content creator is providing for them to be put on their platform in front of all of their followers, right? And so that's the price that they're willing to pay to get in front of that audience. I'll use myself as an example, excuse me. I have a small channel, right? But I've been reached out to by different companies and brands and things of that nature to promote products. And just to be fully transparent with you guys, I've been paid $500 to create a 20-second, 30-second clip. I've been paid $350 to create a 30 to 60-second clip. And that didn't take hardly any time for me, right? And so the value that I provided to these companies and to these brands, to them, it was worth it. The more value that you can provide to others, trust me, the more money that you can make. When you think about the medical field, for example, a lot of medical professionals, doctors, nurses, they work a ton of hours. I watched this podcast called Nurses Rags to Riches. And this podcast, the host brings on a variety of different nurses, travel nurses, general RNs that work inside of the hospitals and things of that nature. And they talk about the salaries, the job, how many hours they're working. They talk about a variety of different things. And when I hear how many hours some of these nurses work, I'm talking about 80 plus hours a week. It's crazy, but they make a lot of money. Now, I would argue that working that many hours as a medical professional, particularly when you're working on human beings, right? Performing, some of these operations or whatever it is that you're doing, if you're a doctor, a nurse, etc., that may not be the best idea, obviously, right? I think you want to have some time to rest and recover, just to make sure that you're equipped and you're in the right state of mind and you're physically capable of performing your job to the best of your abilities. I think rest is important, but some of these, again, nurses, they get a ton of overtime and a lot of them take advantage of it. And so the money is in the overtime, guys. So if you are opposed to working overtime, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And to a lot of people, they may be in a financial situation to where they don't necessarily have to work a lot of overtime to still live a good life. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think it's all up to the individual. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Until the next video, I'll catch y'all later, man. Peace.